Hey, I'm Ace Kipton, and I'm here in the studio solo for Wholly Unapologetic. And the reason today is because I decided to share just a little bit of my story so you can get to understand who I am and why I do what I do today. So, sit back and relax as I share. At a really young age, actually by the age of 4, is when I realized that I was probably trans. And clearly, I didn't have the words to actually describe the inner feelings, but I definitely was showing it in the outside world. And so, what I clearly remember is my parents asking me to, dress up or play with the girls. And I really had this internal desire to do basically anything outside of that. And I would enjoy playing sports, getting dirty, going hunting. I didn't want to dress up. I didn't want to do my hair. In fact, I remember numerous fights with my parents just about being a girl and how uncomfortable it made me feel. And so at a young age, my parents realized this and they kind of let me be a kid. And so when I was at home, I could enjoy the lifestyle that I wanted. But the moment that I left the house is when I needed to present myself in more of a feminine manner. And this lasted my entire childhood, teenage, and even early adult years. I ended up going to a Christian school, and I feel like that was a time period where I was almost indoctrinated into Christianity. And I truly believed all of it to be true and real. And so I ended up going to college. I went to a Christian university. I got a degree in theology and music performance. And I went on to work in the local church. And through this journey, I served many different congregations. And I ended up working for a really large mega church for some time. And then I decided that I wanted to work in a different capacity where I was using my executive leadership skills. So I interviewed and got hired for a position with a very well known international Christian organization. And I worked there for 13 years and I moved my way up through the chain. So I actually became the very first female executive leader under the age of 30 in my department. And it really was a pretty big deal. I remember I was sitting in rooms with multimillionaires, white men that were, you know, 50, 60 years old, pretty much twice my age. And I was able to command the attention of the room. And I really was great at my job. But there came a moment where I realized that it wasn't in alignment with who I am. And I ended up leaving the organization, signed an NDA, so I can't really discuss what really happened. The reality is, I didn't do anything wrong. Um, and that totally wrecked my world. I didn't know how to function outside of the Christian community, and I didn't know what my purpose was. So I ended up going into a really deep and dark depression where I became suicidal. And I enlisted the help of a couple professionals. And during this time period, I also ended up having 2 emergency back surgeries. And I think the reason behind that is partly because I had a back injury back in like 2008, where I was playing powder buff. I got tackled and I got injured and it's kind of nursing the injury for, over a decade. I was repressing the pain and I was unable to be my authentic self. And that just tends to go really sideways when we really hold things in and our body has to store it in some capacity. And so after I had the 2 emergency surgeries, I remember laying on the couch watching Sex, Love, and Goop and going, man, I need something different in my life. And I knew that there was something more, but I didn't know what it was. And so as I was watching Sex, Love, and Goop, I remember watching the clients that were on the show and thinking, I need that in my life. And for the very first time, I actually realized how repressed my desires were and my inner longings. There was a desire from within to really get curious with what was there and to learn how to be in my body because I lived so many years outside of my body and disassociated. So I ended up going to therapy in hiring a sex coach. And I intentionally found two people that are very well known in their field, but had totally different perspectives on life than what I had originally. Because I wanted to hear what it was like to live a different lifestyle where I didn't believe that I was bad, broken, or sinful, but that I could truly express who I am. So, this started a bit of a journey for myself. And at the very beginning of this process, this was totally a personal development journey, just to figure out who I am and what my purpose is in this world. Because I really wanted to dig myself out of that depression that I was in, but find a really healthy way to do that in which I had support and care and just professional expertise to guide me through the healing process that I was about to begin. So this led to about a year-long personal development journey with a doctor, a sex coach, and a therapist. And I remember the day that I was in my therapist's office. We were pretty much strangers still at this point, but I had poured out my heart and soul to her over a couple sessions. And she looked me dead in the eyes and she was like, "You are not straight." And because I had repressed all of the emotions and the feelings and my ideas about expression, identity, orientation, all of that, it just totally went way over my head. And I laughed at her and I was like, "What are you talking about? I like men." And she's like, "No, honey, you are not straight." And that's the moment that it like finally dawned on me. Fuck, I'm trans. And that is possibly one of the worst things that could happen to a conservative Republican Christian, right? Not only did I like men, and now would I be trans masculine and gay. So that uncovered and started a journey for me where I did a few medicine sessions, and the real turning point for me was actually in landing on a table, a somatic sexologist. And in this space, I had an immersion for an entire weekend where I, for the very first time, learned how to be in my body, to feel the sensations that were there, and to be with whatever was arising in that moment. And that honestly was where my life did a complete 180. Because when I experienced that awakening, it was so impactful that I decided, you know what? This was absolutely what I needed to do for myself, but I also need to offer this opportunity to others. And so I went through another journey just on my own, discovering who I am and attending workshops and, flying across the country to be with some of the best sexologists, be with some of the best kink experts, be with some of the best BDSM professionals that I could find, and simply experience what it is like to allow those desires to arise and then to get really curious with them and explore, what does this look like for me? So it was a super fun journey, and I'm sure I'll dive into it to a greater degree on, upcoming podcasts. The reality is, when I decided to make this change for myself, it was because the internal pain became greater than the pain that I was experiencing from the world, which is a bit mind blowing to me, simply because the pain that I experienced from the world, man, let me tell you, I lost my house, I lost my family, I lost my community, I lost my religion, I lost my profession, right? All of that pain that I was experiencing from the outside world was still less than the pain that I felt inside in not being able to authentically express who I truly am as I walk around in this world. So, my hope and desire is to hold safer spaces for people to get brave and be vulnerable with what's authentically there, and to give them an opportunity to learn how to express those desires that are there and really get curious. What does it look like when we throw away all of the rules that we've been given? When the trajectory of my life shifted, I had to make the decision to reclaim my life and take ownership of my desires, my inner longings. And I needed to learn how to rewire my nervous system so that I was no longer disassociating and just walking through this world numb, but I was able to feel and experience the whole range of emotions that we have as humans in this life. I chose to rewrite my story. And it hasn't been an easy journey. In fact, the last 3 years may have been some of the hardest time periods in my life. But I could not continue to live the way that I was living previously. And the interesting piece is now, as I walk around this world, I am consistently, pretty much daily, getting asked, there's something different about you. What is it? And it's because I'm able to find pleasure. And I've learned how to transmute the pain that I've experienced and transform it into something much bigger and bolder. And that is to live a life out of pleasure. So if you're interested in this, feel free to reach out or listen to our podcast, because we're going to be diving into some of the somatic journey that I've experienced, some of the therapy that I've experienced. We're going to have professionals come into the room and really share, what does it look like to be trans in this world and live it in such a way that you're thriving. That's what I truly desire, is for people who have been marginalized their entire lives to find a space where it's safe to be themselves, to get curious with what their desires are, to learn how to express them, and then to go out into this world and really enjoy the life that they're living, so that other people, when they look at them, they go, wow, there's something different about them. It really is possible to live a lifestyle right now where you really love who you are and you're really enjoying your time here on earth. So I hope you join us in the following podcasts as more and more of my story gets shared. And let me tell you, Mark's story, it's pretty awesome as well. So we'll have an episode about him coming up in the future. Hope you have a great day and see you on the next podcast.